BB Dev Days, everyone. I'm excited to welcome Bob Raymond, who's going to be leading us through a session on connecting Blackbaud SIS, NXT, and Financial Edge NXT with Google Sheets. So, Bob, I'm going to go ahead and get out of your way. I will be monitoring the chat for questions. I will rejoin you as you start wrapping up to help you Q&A, manage the Q&A from the chat.
Great, thanks a lot, Derek. My name is Bob Raymond. I'm an independent developer. I work with several schools. I've been a Google Apps Script user for about 10 years and a Blackbaud user for about 5 years. And about 3 or 4 years ago, I saw the opportunity to figure out a way to connect Blackbaud's Sky API with Google Apps Script to create some what I found working with the schools that I work with, very useful applications. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. In terms of why make the connection, the reasons really started out because of while I was working in a school, I saw an opportunity. The anecdote goes as follows. Every hour I saw the head of school run in, ask the bookkeeper to run a Blackbaud report, an enrollment report showing how many kids had enrolled as of that hour, because she was very hyperactive to maximize her enrollment. Enrollment takes 6 to 9 months in most private schools, so there were a lot of stragglers and there was a lot of running around bugging the bookkeeper and other people to run these canned reports so they would know where they were. I also found once we had implemented Blackbaud K-12 at the school, that the head of school, the admissions director, and the principals really wanted to know, but they weren't particularly interested in logging in to their Blackbaud account to find out and to run a report or a list. They wanted the information to be basically brought to them. They also wanted to distribute the information securely to different people in the school. And they wanted to be able to view not only the enrollment contract status in total, but also to be look at it by student, this was sort of the instigation for my connection of the student information system with a Google Worksheets. How to do it, how to work, and first, before I go much farther, if you are interested in this topic, Nick Marchese of the Emma Willard School gave a very good presentation yesterday on something that's very similar to what I'm going to present to you today, excepting that I've kind of extended what he's done even a little bit farther. I also recommend Ben Wong made a presentation on Tuesday where he looked at how to use the Sky API. And if you're interested in exploring it, I would also encourage you to pursue that. So the way this worked was you pull an advanced list from the enrollment management module, you set it up how you want it, you pull it out, it gets pulled through the Lists API, which is part of the Sky API. A Google Apps Script with an hourly trigger runs the actual report, pulls the advanced list. Some Google Apps Script then manipulates it to create it onto a Google Sheet, which has a pivot table, which then summarizes enrollment. So we're going to first ask the question, why Google Workspace? Based on my experience, most schools already have a Google Workspace account. It's all part of their Google Classroom account, so they have it available already. Google Apps Script, and I quote from Google's documentation here, is a relatively easy JavaScript-based language that's directly connected to Google Sheets. And it can do a lot of stuff that's required to do this application. It can fetch the required Sky endpoints. It can store the Sky API codes and keys that are required securely within a Google Apps Script, which then you have the security around it. It can also email notifications if required. So if you want to add a little scripting in that says, send me a notification when a new student parent signs the contract, you can do that. And all the security follows the Google account security. So two-factor and the latest thing with the keywords, whatever they're called. And finally, Blackbaud has yet to introduce connectors for the Microsoft Power Platform for the student information system. So here, if you're familiar, this probably looks familiar to anybody who's created an advanced list. This is how you do it in the student information system. You have reporting, you pull a managed list, you create the advanced list. The list that I'm using here is I created a list of all the candidate and student contracts. So I said, show me all of the outstanding contracts, enrollment contracts for the year for the school, and modified the data and filters. And one little trick along the way is you'll need to know the number of the ID number of the list, which is buried. If you hover over the link address in Blackbaud K through 12, you'll see this number. And so you need that number to start out. So this is what you do. You pull the advanced list, you set it up in Blackbaud K through 12, and then you use the Sky API to pull this list. And the way it works is it goes from that list that you just saw into a Google Sheet. And what I want to do now is I want to show a live example. So this is a live example of the sheet. The advanced list is pulled from Blackbaud. It's then populated onto this Google Sheet, which you see here. I've masked around the students' names. And all of this information is pulled, their status, all this comes directly from Blackbaud. It then comes into here, and it creates that data sheet then is the backup for this pivot table. So it creates a nice pivot table for the school. It shows the lower school and the upper school, the grades from -1, which is pre-K, all the way through grade 12. It then shows the status of each contract. Is the contract on hold? Has the contract not been started by the parent? Has the parent looked at it and then saved it but didn't complete it? And have they submitted it? And this updates hourly automatically because the Google Apps Script is able to store the Sky API connections. So in this case, on June 1st, the school has 346 contracts outstanding, 332 have been returned, and then you can see the number by grade, and then you can see these stragglers. And what the head of school and all of the admissions people are doing is they're trying to find who those students are and follow up. And the pivot table makes it really nice because if they click on the number 3, opens up a little detail tab that shows them these students, here's where they are, these names are made up, are in grade 3, and the parents haven't yet started haven't yet even started looking at the contract. And over here, you can also see their roles. So 2 of them are students and 1 is a candidate who's coming into the school. So how to do it, how to make this work is I created in what's called Google Apps Script a library script. And that library script is shows you how to it contains the connection. It contains the connection between the Blackbaud application and your Google workspace. So it then becomes a library to be used by many other Google Apps scripts. It includes the OAuth library, and here's the link if you're not familiar with that. Here's the link to add that as a library to your script. It stores and refreshes the keys for the Sky API. It authorizes and generates the callback URL that you need to paste into your Sky developer application. And then it can include the call to the list API that you need to pull from the student information system. The first step is to create that library script. The second step is to create a developer application that uses the callback URL from up above. And you need to have although I see Blackbaud is starting to change this, I learned this from Ben Wong's presentation, that you need to have that added to the school environment. The sheet and the script are then created. You create the Google Sheet, and then you attach a script. The script uses the part as number 1 up above as the library. It pulls the data, does some manipulation, dumps it into that table, and then also has a trigger. So that's the basic idea. I have put some documentation and some sample scripts to help on GitHub, and I have the link in that presentation. What processing is available in Google Apps Script? You can do a lot. Once you get the data from the advanced list, you can do a lot. You can filter it by types of contracts. So if your school uses multiple contracts, you can see the status by contract. You can use different sheets to monitor that. The data can be modified within Google. So sometimes the Blackbaud information when a contract is submitted, sometimes it'll say it's been submitted and sometimes it'll be say it's processed. So rather than showing all that detail to the head of school, you can just write a simple thing in the Google Apps script to combine the submitted and processes to process ones together, so it prints out really nicely and you don't have to explain the difference. You can also, and some of this I learned over time, some enrollment managers and admissions directors, they just wanted to say, just tell me when something happens, just trigger me an email when the parent signs the contract so that I can know that. So what happens is there's a trigger in there that says if there's a change in the sheet, the admissions director can be notified. This idea for what I've shown here today is just to monitor enrollment, but there's actually any advanced list can be accessed using the Sky API. And these are examples of where I've used that functionality. So automated email based on filters, data manipulation. Some of the schools I work with, one example is the registrar needed to review 300 transcripts to make sure that the number of credits was done by department. And the school requirements were more complicated than the Blackbaud K through 12 requirements an analyzer allows. And so the solution was to create an advanced list, do some manipulation, pop it into a Google Sheet, and help the registrar know which students were short of their requirements. Another example that I've worked with is official notes. A school wanted to know when was an official note filed and receive a notification of that. In a very specific example, once again, create an advanced list, create a pivot table, show by day. Attendance tracking. During COVID, a school that I work with was very spread out, needed to know who was in the school by 9 o'clock every day so that they could follow up. So once again, I created an advanced list. It tracks whether the teachers have recorded attendance that day, and then bugs the teachers who haven't, then pulls another advanced list at 11 o'clock to say, okay, here's who's in the school and here's who's not. Another one that I worked with is for analyzing academic schedules. So I work with a registrar at a school who wanted a simpler way to use the output of the Blackbaud scheduler as she's composing her schedule for next academic year. She wanted to say, well, in total, what percentage of student requests were honored? She wanted to know which courses were in demand that were unable to be satisfied by the scheduler. And she found clicking around the Blackbaud scheduler app was a little too clumsy. So once again, created an advanced list, pulled it out, did some analysis, presented in a Google Sheet. There are many more examples. Anything that can be captured in an advanced list can be exported into a data sheet and create a Google Sheet out of. And not only does this idea work for Blackbaud K through 12, but it also works for other Blackbaud applications, anything that's available in the Sky developer platform. So you can use RE, FE, and even the payments API can run through the same idea once you get that library script pulled up, created, and once the user account that you're using has the proper authority to do that. So I've done work for schools in several areas. For example, one school populates a Google Sheet with their gifts, and every night it automatically gets uploaded to NXT, and therefore avoids the data entry problems that you might have. I've automated a payments API that uses Blackbaud checkout, once again from a Google Apps script form, automated journal entry uploads from Google Apps Sheets as well. Oops, sorry. And finally, this is where so at that URL, github.com/bray-field Sky API is where I put some documentation. Here's my contact information, and happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thanks. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Robert. James had asked in the chat if you can drop that link, and I think you just did. So that so far is the only question that we've gotten in the chat during your session.
Okay.
Are there other questions from folks? We've got a little bit of time. Okay. Robert, thank you for your presentation. Very informative. I'm going to go ahead and drop the link. Oh, sorry, we did get another question here. Troy asks, could you talk a little bit about the security around keys and secrets and publishing as web apps?
So, the key to the security for the keys thing is this idea that there is a single script that contains the keys, and everything else uses that script as a library. So that library script is secure and not shared. It's created in a Google account that is like a service account, and that only users who are authorized within that can actually run that particular library script where the keys and the other stuff is the secure information is required.